Path to Build. You've seen the ads. I know you've heard the buzz. Everyone's talking about building an ADU. But what does it actually take to go from idea to permits, to a finished second home in your backyard? What does that look like? Well, for many homeowners, the process is confusing, overwhelming, and full of unexpected delays. But not for Jason Schmid. Meet Jason, one of our favorite clients here at LA Expedite. He's a homeowner who got his ADU done. The permits, the inspections, the second story. He built an ADU for his mom and made it through without the horror stories that most people tell. Today, he's here to share what made the difference, what he knew that most homeowners don't, and how you can avoid the drama, save time, and get your project built right. I'm Jenifer Carvalho, and this is Path to Build. All right, Jason, thank you for being here. I'm doing great. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
So Jason Schmid is one of our wonderful clients here at LA Expedite, and also a homeowner who, based on his experience, not only in construction, but also with building his own ADU, is now able to support many, many homeowners going through the ADU construction process. So we're here to provide value for thousands of people. And, I just wanted to ask you some questions about your experience.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Awesome. All right, let's get into it. So, Jason, it's been a couple of months, if not more, since you finished your ADU, right?
Yeah, I think it's been, I want to say almost a year since we got our certificate. I know, it just, time goes by. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, since you got your C of O. So Jason, a lot of people, especially lately, I've been seeing a lot of people really concerned about the process, not knowing what to expect, confused about not only the plan check process, but the construction process. So we hope that today we bring that to the table with your expertise. So my first question is around, how did you decide to build your own ADU?
So my background is, my parents were both in the construction business. My dad was a general contractor, and my mom was a draftsman, working for my dad's best friend, who was an architect, actually. So I had that kind of, in my background. I grew up on construction sites. My parents built multiple houses that we lived in. So I just kind of had that in my background. So when it came time to do the ADU, I felt, relatively pretty comfortable with the whole process. So I knew I wanted to have a big hand in how the process went down.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's how you decided to call us, right?
Well, that's a different story. So my girlfriend worked in the food service industry for a long time, in promotions for like restaurants and chefs and stuff. And one of the people she'd bumped into in that world was this guy named Fast Eddie. And he's the guy that restaurants use to get their liquor permits done efficiently. And so I knew that a person like that existed in the world, in the restaurant space. And so when it came time to do the ADU, the very, very first thing I wanted to do was find out who that person is in the construction world. And that's how I found you. And that
awesome,
was, the number one thing I knew I wanted to have in place before I did anything was get that sorted.
Oh my God. Well, based on your experience, with your parents and being in construction, that would come as a non-negotiable thing, right? But I do want to offer a lot of homeowners who do not really have that advantage of having been familiar with the industry.
Yeah.
That this is a must. Yeah.
So I will tell you, just anecdotally, friends that I know, family that I know who've tried to, build an ADU or, even do a renovation on their home, 2 years trying to get the permits through. 18 months trying to get the permits through. And this isn't even this is like a normal piece of construction on flat land. There's no special anything.
Right.
But when people try and do it by themselves and they don't understand the process, one of the things that'll happen when you're in permitting is you'll present your plans to the city, and they'll give them back to you with notes, essentially.
Mhm.
But what the notes are is every single page of your plans, these big drawings, is just marked up with red everywhere. And if
Yep.
you don't know what you're doing, it can be incredibly alarming. And you think, well, we'll
Yep.
never get through this unless you have somebody on
Right.
your team like yourself who
Right.
understands what all that really means and how much of it
Exactly.
is really applicable to your project and can get you
Yeah.
through that process. I
Yeah.
can't, I
Exactly.
can't, I can't possibly, like when I'm consulting for people who are interested in doing ADUs now, I typically do a feasibility walk with them on the property and look
Right.
around and give them ideas about what they can and can't do versus,
Right.
based on what they're, coded for and stuff. Um, without, with no exception, the number one thing I tell them is you must hire a permit expediter for
That's
your
right.
project.
I
Period.
love it. Yes.
Whatever else you do, you want to hire an architect, you want to get a prefab, you want to do
Right.
whatever you want to do, but
Right.
please just get an expediter so that you don't
Exactly.
spend 2 years trying to get a permit.
Oh my God. And plus,
Yeah.
when people spend 2 years or when people spend more than, I would say, 5, 6 months, you're already at a loss if you think about it because
Well, also,
good, good,
the price of materials, you have a
exactly.
budget in
Exactly.
mind when you start the process, and it's going to
Hmm.
cost,
Yeah.
$180,000 in parts.
Yeah.
But if it takes you 2 years to get your permit,
Exactly. Jesus
all of a
Christ.
sudden
Yeah.
it's a different number, and now you're
You
you're
got me
over
a little
budget already.
religious.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. I know, and that's something that I would really like to provide value to people listening to our podcast. Look, an expediter is not just going to run your paperwork. An expediter is going to advise you. An expediter is going to advocate for you. Like we advocate for our clients tremendously.
yeah,
We don't take no for an answer in a professional way. We have the city knows that this is our job to hold people
yeah,
accountable. And we know who to go to when one person is being stubborn, let's be
hmm
honest.
yeah,
And
and you're
just,
and you're gonna find that,
yeah,
and that's another thing that people,
yeah,
they a lot of people who don't know this business think that bureaucracy is a bureaucracy and it just has
right,
rules. And at
right,
the end of the day, it does to a point, but it's also
right.
really personality driven. And
That's
if you
right.
get an inspector who's just stubborn,
Having a bad
that's
day, didn't drink his
yeah, having a
coffee.
bad day. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He got caught in traffic, whatever,
Right,
or he's 4 hours late or whatever it's going to
right,
be. That's going to
right,
affect how he looks at the project.
right.
And
Exactly.
if you don't have people who are familiar with that process on your
Right.
team, it's just going to cost money and time.
I just, I want to say this because it's important. We have a situation with an ADU. The neighbor, the rear neighbor does not want this owner to build his ADU. He hired a surveyor. Obviously the homeowner hired a surveyor as well, but his survey went through the recording process with the LA County. So that is for sure the lot line configuration. They were about to go to war. They were about to go and hire attorneys and everything. We got in the middle of it. We simply had a meeting where we broke down what was going on, explained certain things to the neighbor, and he's fine. He was about to spend thousands of dollars. Both of them were about to spend thousands of
Right.
dollars on lawsuits for
Fighting it
no
out in court.
reason. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many advantages, and every property is unique, right? So
Yeah.
for example, for yours, there were some things that were happening during the process, right? Like during the plan check
Yeah.
process when you submitted an application and then you're
Yeah.
going through all the department approvals, you
Well,
don't, for
during the
some people, they
building
don't even,
process, we had
in the building
we had to do
process,
a height survey
exactly.
in the middle of the project because
Yeah.
again, when you did a walk with me at my
Yeah.
property,
Yeah.
one of the things that you had said was, hey, you're zoned for 2 stories, you should put a second story in that thing.
Right.
And
Right.
without even thinking about it, I was like, oh my God, you're right. Yeah, of course I will. And so
Right.
we did. And so one of the inspectors, again, personality driven, just
Mm-hmm.
decided, hey, I want a height survey on that thing. Now I'm
Right.
zoned for 28 feet. That's what we're
Right.
allowed to build. But my
Right.
project is permitted for 19 feet. So I had
Right.
to get a height survey to make sure that the building itself wasn't an inch over 19 feet.
I
And,
know.
we were within an inch. Like it was close.
Right.
But like,
But you're
and I had to,
allowed, so that's good.
everybody had to stop what they were doing so we could get a height survey in the middle of the project.
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. And having that can just stop you for months.
It can,
Yeah.
unless,
Yes.
I was able to call you
Yeah.
immediately and say, "Hey, I need this to happen." And you were like, "This is my survey guy, call him." And he came
Yes.
out, I think, the next day
Yeah, he
and,
was amazing.
had the survey done in like 48 hours. We were back up and running.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear. That means the world to us, by the way, you saying all these, because we have leveraged a lot of our relationships. We know who to call, who's in the game, like who's all in with my clients.
Yeah. And,
So
as a
yeah,
homeowner, it's like, I don't pull any weight. You know what I mean? I'm one guy doing one project. Like, these
right.
guys are never going to hear from me again. I don't draw enough water in this town, but when you bring some,
Well, now you are, aren't you? Because now you're helping so many
yeah, I mean,
people.
I've got a couple homeowner clients, but
Yes,
small
yeah.
time stuff. But when you bring somebody like yourself on who's got a big client list, now all of a sudden, when you bring people to the table, they're beholden to you and your company and the business you bring in, and they're going to
That's
respond
right.
at a higher level.
Right.
And so
And I tell them, it's kind of
and the relationships you have, I was able to leverage on my project to my benefit, and it was
everybody
worth
wins.
every penny.
Everybody wins. They win more work. We help you get your project to an actual building,
Yeah.
start and finish, see about. So, when you were going through construction, I remember there were a couple of things that were happening that I want people to keep in mind, right? So let's just fast forward to you being able to get your building permit.
hmm
Congratulations, you got your permit. You're ready to break ground. And then the inspection side of the process, I want to educate people that, even though you got your permit, you're not done, right? You still have to go through inspections. And sometimes what comes up during inspections does not come up during plan check process. So could you tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about your experience about that?
Yeah. I mean, what's on the plan isn't not always what's going to get built. There's,
Right?
on bigger projects, you have people who are continuously updating the plans to make sure
All the
that they're
time.
as built. But
Yes.
on a small ADU project, we've, got the approved plans, and that's what we're trying to build. And oftentimes, the inspector will come in and look at what they've done and look at what's on the page, and there's interpretation there. So it's like
Right.
you can look at it and say, well, we could do it this way, and the inspector can say, well, I want it done this other way. And
Right.
depending on how he interprets what's in the plan. And
Hmm.
so now you have to have like a kind of a debate with him, especially if it's something where it's like they've already started the work. So now I'm going
Right.
to lose money going backwards to make it something that you want. So we
Exactly.
definitely ran into that a couple of times where, the
Right.
guys had begun working on something in one way, and the
Right.
inspector said, "No, I want it done a different way."
Right.
And
Exactly. But
and
you were able to
and
pivot fast in certain
we
occasions, right?
were, but we also knew that, and again, this is something you learn through experience, is understanding it's not just bureaucracy, it's personality driven,
Hmm.
and you don't always get to choose your inspector. You don't
Nope.
get to choose your inspector. So a lot of times you just have to bend to their will. And it's,
Right.
like in the permit process, like it's worth fighting for it. You can get in there,
Yes.
you can bring somebody
Totally.
like yourself in there who
Yes.
knows where to push and how to push and
Yes.
try and get that stuff done. But once you're into inspections on site, you
It's
kind of need to
delicate.
just do what they say. It is more
Yes,
delicate.
it's
And also there's more
yes.
money in play now. So it's like
Right.
I got crews, I got timing of things happening. So it's like a lot of times you just need to like give them what they want.
That's right. Yeah. That's very Jason, I'm so glad you
Even
say that
though it's like,
because
well, it doesn't say that in the plan, but it's like, yeah, but
right?
if that's what he says he wants and that's what he's going to approve, then that's
Yeah.
what we give.
And potentially, I have had some clients who just simply do not give, just they just don't let it go, right? And for the most part, what ends up happening is more and more inspectors get involved, and now supervisors get involved,
Yeah.
and then they call us. We do support through that process, but they call us, hey, this guy is simply not helping us. So we call for meetings, and at the end of the day, like you said, they end up having to do what the inspector says. We do shorten that timeline of how long that would take, but there's only so much we can do from our point of perspective when they are the ones that are approving your
Yeah.
plans and giving you the final inspection. So that's
Yeah.
really important. And for your
Yeah.
contractors to really understand the drawings, that's very important, and understand the difference between, hey, this was approved, but it wasn't taken into account. So let's just go and work through that. I think
Yeah.
that's really, yeah, that's really important. And so when you received your final inspection, right? Because I remember you called us, you had a couple of hiccups, certain things that on the plans needed to be revised. I think we ended up doing a supplemental, did we?
I
Or
don't think on
not
mine
really.
we
Thank
did.
God. No, we did
The
not
only
end
thing
up
I
doing
had
that.
an issue with was moving my solar panels around
Right,
because I
right.
had
That's,
solar on the house, but then I put a second story on it, so then they were in shade, and I had to
yes.
move them around.
Yeah,
And I just had to fight with the inspectors and everybody about where I was going to put the inverter box on my house because I
exactly.
wanted to put
Yeah.
it in one place, and they were like, the whole
No.
way through the process, they were like, you can put it there. And then on
Right.
final inspection, they said, no, you
Yes.
can't put it there. And again,
Okay.
it was
So,
like, there's
yeah.
there's no rule that says I can or can't. It was just it happened to be on the day that guy decided I was not allowed
No,
to put it there.
right, right. Yeah, I certainly recommend one way or another requesting emails. Hey, we had a meeting. Can I break down what happened today? But even
Yeah.
if you do that, that doesn't guarantee they're going to
Yeah.
say,
And
yeah,
I'd
I
taken
said
your
that.
advice and done
Yeah,
that and
yeah,
had the notes and shown the things.
yes,
But at that point, like you said, it's the inspector
yeah,
supervisor is in the project
exactly,
because I've contested it so many times. And once you're at the
exactly.
supervisor level, now it's game over. There's no more
It's
fighting.
game over. Yeah, there's
It's
no
just
more. Nobody's going above his head
yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Well, once he puts his foot down, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So,
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so what an experience, right? There's so much
yeah.
that we learned from it, that you learned from it. I'm one of the questions that keeps popping up to whenever I meet with homeowners is, okay, how come I get so many bids, right? And this is how you come in, right? How you support people. How come all these bids are so different? Right? That was one
Yeah.
thing that I noticed, right? Like they're all
Yeah.
different. One is like $100,000 over than the other one, 50,000. Like what are the gaps here? So could you walk me through how you could help people through that process since
Yeah,
your
I mean, if you're talking
experience
about
and
like
know?
you're talking about general contractor bids,
General contractor
right?
bids. Yes,
So
correct.
yeah,
Yes.
because I mean, I was my own general contractor, so I was mostly dealing with just sub bids. So I'm just
Right.
using subcontractors. But certainly when I first started the project, I did explore the idea of having a general contractor, and I can
Yes.
tell you that I got bids as low as $99,000 and as
Right.
high as $450,000
Crazy.
for
Absolutely
the
crazy.
exact same set of plans.
Right.
So,
Right.
when you're breaking down a bid like that, there's a couple things to look for. One is if it's broken down. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
not broken down, to me, that is a big red flag. I want to
Mm-hmm.
know, and even if you don't understand what all the broken down numbers are, somebody like myself or yourself can walk somebody through and explain what those numbers are. But if I don't see a bid that's broken down enough, to me, that's a red flag that there's squishiness happening here. There's if it's too low,
There's
that means
room
they're
for
cutting
them to
corners.
say, yeah,
And if too high,
exactly.
that means they're hiding numbers, and that's
Right.
why that's not broken down. I tend to find like the better bids, the more realistic bids, are somewhere in the middle, and they're usually broken down pretty well in the bid that explain where the money goes to each section of the bill,
Right.
where you
Right.
get an idea of like what the expenditures are. And
Right.
and the other thing to remember with general contractor bids is a lot of the time there's a lot of things that aren't included that the
Right.
homeowner is expected to purchase, fixtures and that kind of stuff, which
Right.
you
Right.
don't think is a big deal, but then you realize like, well, I need like a bunch of windows and
Yeah.
doors, and like you start adding up all the stuff that's not included, and you're like, oh, there's another like $80,000 of stuff that's
Exactly. Exactly.
not in the bid. um so you need to be smart about itemizing your own costs. Yeah.
One of the things we say there's a difference between a permit set and a construction set, right? So a permit set doesn't necessarily include all of the details that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
referring to, which
Yeah.
then gives you a different number. Now, when
Yeah.
you request your architect to give you a construction set, then that includes a tremendous amount of detail, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and if you have an interior designer doing your plans, then you
Sure.
have even more detail, right? So then it
Yeah.
becomes like a
Yeah.
100-page construction set that it would
Sure.
include absolutely every little single
Yeah.
detail. And it's kind of like, I always tell people, it's kind of like you take a house, you flip it, and whatever falls, it's your construction set. Like that would be what would be included
Yeah. Yeah.
in
If you
that.
shake it loose
If you
and
shake it
and
loose, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So wow. So now that your AD is there, there's just, a lot of people feel inspired by your story. I mean, I do certainly. What would you say is the experience now that you have your ADU? I hear your mom is living in it,
She
right?
does. Yeah, she lives in there.
How
It's,
awesome.
she's getting older, so it was just important to have her close.
I love it.
That was the
How
inspiration for
nice.
building it.
That's awesome.
So,
And
yeah,
it's
it's
so
good.
beautiful, such a beautiful space. The kitchen
Yeah.
design is gorgeous, the bathroom, everything flows. I love that you have the second floor. It's kind of like a loft design.
Yeah, it's
It's
lofted over
beautiful.
the bedroom and the main room is
Exactly.
19-foot ceilings, so
Right. And it's
it's a
gorgeous.
small space, but it feels really open. That was
Right.
important to
And
me. I didn't want it to feel claustrophobic.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why you were able to go as high as possible, right? That's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, that was
And
important.
and it turns out most people, unless you're on significant grade and they've limited you, most people
Hmm.
are zoned for 2 stories in LA. So, which is why a lot of people are building over their garage that's pre-existing because they want, to maximize space. But, you can also just build 2 stories. Why not? You know.
You saying that we're working through an ADU right now, hillside development, and the owner was really worried because we were only able to go up as high as 19 feet. And
Mhm.
you're saying, this worked out for me. So a lot of
Yeah,
people get
19
really
feet is two
scared.
stories. Yeah,
It's two
it's
stories.
okay.
You're fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's great. So another thing that, if you don't mind me asking, people ask me, "Hey, what should I expect my construction cost to be?" So what was the size of your ADU, and if you could just give us a ballpark of ultimately how much you ended up spending, so people are aware of what to expect.
Yeah, so I built it's about 612, 615 square feet. And again, I was my own general contractor, so there's a lot of costs that are
Right.
not included in my number, and
Exactly.
I did it for about
Yes.
265,
I see.
all
Beautiful.
in.
Yes.
And a lot of that is, the
Brand new construction too, right? It was
yeah,
attached
yeah,
to
brand
your
new
single
construction.
home.
It
Right.
is yeah,
Right.
it used to be grass, and now there's a building
Hmm.
there, so it
Exactly.
was completely new construction, ground up.
Right.
But I always tell people, like, you think you're going to save a bunch of money because you already have a garage there. It it's not going to be a big difference. It really isn't.
No,
Like, don't get
it
excited about
isn't.
how much money you're going to save. You're just
Right.
not.
You're
It
not.
doesn't really that pouring slab or not pouring slab is not going to change the main cost
Exactly.
of the build.
Exactly.
Um, but
That's so
yeah,
true.
usually now, like the costs go up, materials costs go up,
Right.
labor costs go up. And
Yeah.
especially now because of the extreme demand we're about to get into with rebuilding LA, we just lost
Mm-hmm.
20, 30,000 homes.
Yep. Yep.
Um, the materials costs are going to be significant. Labor shortages are going to be significant. So, right now, I've been telling people prepare for 40% increase across the board. Yeah. So and previously I was telling people it's going to cost you around 300, 350. Now I'm
Right.
saying it's probably closer to 450,
You
just
know, that's
realistically.
realistically speaking, right? Now,
Yeah.
but not to mention, right, the value that it adds to your home, the return on investment to me sounds fantastic for most people. A lot of people ask me, do I have to provide parking? If I rent it, how would it work out for me? Should I do a JADU? Should I, a lot of people have a lot of questions like that. And at the end of the day, from all the people that have built ADUs that we have supported, they always sound like you. Like I do not regret it. It was a
Yeah,
great
not at all.
investment.
And even,
Yes.
like I'm not doing it to rent it out right now, but even
Right.
having and done it as affordably as I could,
Right.
by running the project myself, we still feel like we have increased the value of our home at least to the value of what we spent.
Right.
So worst case scenario,
Exactly.
we've added, $280,000 of value. So we're already breaking
Right.
even, even
Right.
if
You
we don't
already.
rent it out.
you're
But if you
already
are doing
winning.
it as a
It's
rental, then you just sit down, you run a little bit of math, and you figure out what
right,
makes sense for you. If it's a junior ADU, then
right.
if those numbers work for you, then do that. I,
Exactly.
I think,
Yeah,
if somebody wants to do it, I always feel like there's a way to make it happen. Especially
exactly.
if you've been in your home for 4 to 5 years, there's enough equity
Yes.
there that you can make it happen.
100%, and that is already, win-win scenario. If you keep that in mind, you'll get through anything, any
Yeah,
headache that goes
yeah,
through the
yeah,
process.
yeah,
Keep
yeah,
that in mind. Keep that
yeah,
on a sticky in your on
yeah,
your
yeah,
mirror in the morning. Make sure you don't forget that that's the win. You're gonna win. You're gonna go through the line and win. And another
yeah,
thing is there are a lot of ordinances, a lot of bills coming out. Honestly, all the time that could support you. So if you couldn't do your ADU before, potentially you can right now because the law
yeah,
has changed so much. There's the
yeah,
transit, half a mile. If you're close to transit within a half a mile, you're now able to be exempt from providing parking. You can never remove parking for your single family home, but you can remove it for your ADU. So there's so many
yeah.
scenarios that you can take advantage of. There's
Yeah,
now
and in
the
Los Angeles, almost everyone
exactly.
is half a mile away from transit, so it's
Exactly.
very
You should.
easy to get to that point.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. There are very few properties
yeah,
that would not take advantage of that. But also, this year a couple things came up. And I was telling you before we got on the. But for example, we have the bill. 2533, which is a bill that standard introduces uniform requirements. So any local regulations not conforming to these new state standards are now rendered null or void. So it's up to
oh,
you. Yeah, it's a huge one. And then there's also
yeah,
the parking flexibility, the SB 1211. There's the increased ADU capacity. So how big can your detached or JADU be? So there's so many things that you can do. So I think
yeah,
that for the most part, there's also another one. If, for example, a department takes longer than 3 months to review your ADU, you could potentially say, "Hey, excuse me, because of the
yeah,
housing
yeah, yeah,
prices, you're supposed to
yeah,
let me
yeah,
build these, so I'm going to do
yeah.
it." So little things
I
like
think
that,
there was one already in place for the fire department like that.
That's
Like if the
right.
fire
That's the
department
one I'm
doesn't get back
referring
to
to.
you, then you're done.
Then you're done. You
Yeah,
you go. You have the
you
right
don't
to.
get to say anything. Yeah,
Exactly. Yes. And so there are things in your favor. And um, I know that the cost is high. I would encourage people to get to know your website, right? I think that your support is incredibly invaluable, and people need to really understand that if you go in with expertise, you're going to save thousands of dollars. You
yeah,
do
yeah,
not want to go in
yeah.
without it, because that's the ultimate nightmare right there.
Yeah. Well, and
So
also, what I tell people too is like, don't be afraid of hand holding. Like hand holding is
yeah,
okay. Like
that's
you're
right.
not supposed to be the expert here. Like it's totally
Correct.
fine that you don't
Yes.
become an expert in home building. That's not your
Right.
job.
Yeah, no.
Like
No, ChatGPT is not going to help you there. I know. Yes, this is what the experts do. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And it's okay to ask for quotes, and it's okay to ask for testimonials and understand who you're working with. You should work with people that have been there, and understand the ultimate goal here. We sometimes have conversations that are very transparent with clients, maybe a little too soon. We're like,
Hmm.
hey, actually, this is the risk, but we are prepared to manage it. This is what we do. The question is, are you okay dealing with it? And most
Yeah.
people really appreciate that. Sometimes they say, let me wait, let me think about it. But I encourage
Hmm.
people to jump right at it,
Yeah.
and build their ADUs. Jason, I think this has been a fantastic conversation. I wonder if there's anything else you'd like to provide people with, that could.
I can't think of anything right now, but like I
Okay.
think what you said is I think really hits the mark. It's just like, you know, bring people in who can help you. Like
Yes.
the
Yes.
biggest
Yes.
mistake I see homeowners run into again and again is thinking they
Yes.
can do it themselves. And
Exactly.
then
Exactly.
and then they have a really, really bad experience with it.
And it's really painful. It's very unfortunate. I have heard people call me. I've been stuck in the permitting process for a year and a half. And we're like, oh my God, I wonder what happened. You know, a lot of it, you know, is the consultants, is the people you chose to work with because they gave you a really low price. So you decided to go with that person. So, you know, this is an investment. This is something you should treat with the highest, you know, expectation and standard. Like, I want the best of the best, and you're going to get it done correctly. You're going to pass inspections. You're not going to have any headaches, and you're going to increase the value of your home. So many wins here.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
And
all right,
hire
Jason.
an expediter.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Hire a construction administrator right here. So,
you know, whatever makes you comfortable. But
exactly,
you know, if you've been trying to get your permits passed for more than 6 months by yourself, please stop.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and also just for people to know, if you are dealing with a situation like that, you know, feel free to consult with us. We can support you and maybe help you move things. If we're here to support, you know, there's so many ways in which we can support people. So. Yeah. All right. Okay, Jason. Well, it was great having you. I'm so excited that you were here today with us. A lot of people are going to benefit from it. And let's see if you can come back with more insights for people to know, you know, construction insights. Thanks, Jason. All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye. Okay. Bye. And to all of our amazing listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Stay connected with us. I am your pre-construction expert, Jenifer Carvalho, bringing you the latest news in the construction industry here in California. We're going to be doing a podcast in regards to the fire rebuilds and how you can rebuild your home, or how you can, as a contractor or developer, support people rebuild their homes faster. Don't forget, our podcast is Path to Build, now streaming on Spotify. Tap that follow button so you never miss an episode filled with expert insights, behind the scenes, stories, real strategies driving successful projects, development projects. Now, let's keep building together. And don't forget to leave us a comment if you want us to talk about something that you're dealing with. Thank you so much. Bye.